I think it's now time to stop living paycheck to paycheck. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you some steps of exactly how you can apply this to your life in order to not live paycheck to paycheck. Most people think that financial freedom is unachievable, but actually just applying these simple steps will put you on the right pathway to achieving your own financial freedom. So most people, when they get paid, they literally just go and spend whatever they want, go and live it up, go on holidays and so on and so forth. But if you want to achieve financial freedom, we need to follow some very clear steps. The first step is focusing on budgeting. Budgeting your income is one of the most crucial parts of how you're going to attain financial freedom and eventually not live paycheck to paycheck. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we live within our means. So this is about optimizing our income. So when our income comes into our bank account at the end of the month, we want to ensure that no more than 60% of our income is going on to bills. Now this is obviously a lot easier if you have a partner and you're both covering the bills, but we need to ensure that our mortgage, our rent, our electrics, our utilities are 60% of the bills. So if your bills are more than 60% of your monthly income, then you need to reconsider your living conditions. And if you're of that age, potentially move back in with your parents to boost your savings and boost that income. We're all entitled to have fun every single month, and that is something that you should account for and make sure that you expense. So 20% should be going to fun. That's whatever you want to do. You're going out, your takeaways, meeting up with your friends. So let's make sure that we budget for it and we don't overdo it. Most people do not look to the future. So they are not using any of their income today to start building for the future. And this is where everybody has a shortfall. And ultimately, we should be looking at that 20% to look forward to the future. So that is ultimately setting aside 20% of our monthly income to build a pot for the future. When we look at this, we should have 60%, 20%, and 20%. 60% is for our needs. That is to keep the lights on, to keep the roof above our head. Then we have 20%, which is our wants, which is something that we want to achieve, we want to have fun, and we want to go out. And 20% should be used for savings and investments for our future. Now you can use some great apps like Monzo. Monzo Bank has got some things called pots. With pots, you can then instantly segregate the money that comes into the account into these 3 different pots. This means that you will not go over that budget in each individual pot, keeping you well focused on your future goal of achieving financial freedom. And within that 60%, a lot of people do live above their means. And the reason why is because we go through phases within the overall economy where money is cheap. So when we have cheap lending, people often buy better cars, better houses. And the reason being is because the monthly payments are a lot lower, meaning that you go for a bigger house because all you need to focus on is being able to pay that monthly payment. Now, obviously, as we go through cycles within the overall economy, interest rates can increase. And obviously, we're seeing that even more so now where interest rates are increasing and people are struggling to cover their mortgage costs because initially they bought a much bigger house than what they could actually afford if that debt cost was to increase. And so naturally what we're seeing now is we're seeing individuals trying to downsize because they cannot afford those monthly costs on their mortgages, and now it's eating into those other percentages of their overall monthly income, reducing that pot for fun and being able to go out, and reducing that pot for future investments and savings, which ultimately is going to look after them for the long run. So just bear this in mind, that when you're looking at that 60% allocation of your monthly money, it is to be within your means, and maybe explore and look at interest rates, say over the last 10 years, to see what the worst case scenario would be on those repayments on usually a car or on your house. So what's more concerning, you can see the overall country in the UK is on a downturn in the amount of money that has been set aside for savings and investments. You can see that it peaked here on this chart within 2020, and ever since then it's just been naturally decreasing the amount of money that is getting deposited into savings accounts. Now this is obviously highly concerning because it means that people aren't saving for the future, aren't setting aside their income, and ultimately aren't progressing for their future self. And then when we look at what the FCA have to say, more than 34% of UK adults have less than £1,000 in their savings. And what's crazy about this, that over 47% of adults aged between 18 and 24 do not have £1,000 in cash in their savings. This is highly alarming, and this is actually really focused to my age demographics that follow me on my channel. So it's really important that we understand that and we address this, because not a lot of people actually talk about their finances with someone, and this is something that we need to make sure that we focus on if we're to start that pathway to becoming financially free and stop living paycheck to paycheck. With the stats as high as 81% of individuals do not talk about their finances. By talking about it, running through your budgeting with your partner, with your family, understanding where your income comes into play and how you can use that 60, 20 and 20 pot of being able to set aside your money is really important. And sometimes running through those figures with someone that is very close to you helps you understand your finances better and allows you again to get on that pathway to financial freedom. So don't be afraid to talk about it, and also ask me questions about finances. Get in the comments, because ultimately I'm here to help and get you on that pathway to financial freedom. So we're going to be looking at a chart here of those with savings and those without savings to ultimately understand how it affects you on a monthly basis from a satisfaction point of view, but also from a stress point of view as well. So you can see here that couldn't last 3 months without borrowing. You can see that those that regularly saved here in pink, it was around 40%, just under those that felt that they couldn't last at least 3 months without borrowing, whereas those that were not regular savers was over 60%. So you can see that those that were regularly saving felt a lot more comfortable being able to last 3 months without borrowing any money. Struggling to keep up with bills, other credit commitments, you can see here that it's below 40% on those that are regular savings, and those that aren't regular savings, you can see it's above the 60% again. Really interesting on this one here, you can see satisfied with life. You can see that more than 40% of those that were regular savers were more satisfied with life than those that were non-regular savers. So from a satisfaction point of view in your life, it's actually going to increase your satisfaction if you are a regular saver. And you can see those that are anxious about finances heavily reduced by those that are frequently saving, in comparison again to those that are non-regular savers. And you can see here, look, unconfident about managing money. Those that are saving frequently feel a lot more comfortable with managing their money. As you can see that it's a lot less here than 40%. And again, those that are unconfident about managing money from a point of view from those without savings is over the 60% mark. So you can see here from an overall highlight, those with more savings are more satisfied, less anxious and more comfortable in their life than those that are not regularly saving. So some of you may be saying, I cannot get my bills into that 60%. There's just no way. So how can I save money? Here are some methods here that you can look at saving money. And you can see that nearly 80% of people using this method just simply turned off their lights a lot more frequently. They put their electrical goods onto standby. They started eating out less than usual, freeing up that cash flow pot to be able to use more money for their future self. Reducing the number of takeaways that they have as a family, reducing the amount of food shopping, reducing usage on household appliances, reducing transport usage and shopping at different places. Remember that during hard times, what will happen is naturally you should substitute goods. So for example, I like to eat a lot of steak, so in a hard time, I may not go and buy a fillet steak, but instead I'll buy a ribeye or a sirloin. And that is what we call substitution. It reduces my cost of outgoings. I still get the necessary requirement of what I'm after, but the cost isn't as much. It's the same as buying clothes. Instead of shopping at Louis Vuitton, I'll shop at Primark, and ultimately you're going to be saving huge amounts of money. So this is the next stage. You want to start saving. You want to start ensuring that you have got an emergency fund on the side, because this will then cover you in those times of difficulty where you have unexpected bills, your car breaks down unexpectedly, or in the situation that we're in at the moment where interest rates have been on the rise and your mortgage costs may be up for renewal and the cost on the monthly basis is going to increase. This allows you to then offset and not worry so much about those increase in costs. If you have managed to decrease your amount of outgoings from that 60% to potentially less, then ultimately you want to start looking at any debt that you have and start paying off high interest debt. because this is going to affect your long-term savings, and ultimately the cost of that debt is going to be more than the return that you have on your savings. So paying down that debt is super important if you have the allocation available to do so. For a rule around emergency funds, you want to ideally look for 1 to 3 months of emergency funds covered, meaning that you could survive without income for up to 3 months. And this overall gives you a great comfort blanket in order to ensure that you can live month to month in a bad scenario like that. So now let's look at investing. Investing comes in a lot of different shapes and forms of what you can look at. It doesn't necessarily mean throwing money into the markets. It could just mean as simple as getting more qualified. Improving your qualifications as an individual may help you attain an increased salary with either your employer or a new employer. This is one of the most important parts, is that you can always increase your own wealth as yourself from a qualification standpoint, and investing in yourself is something that you want to do. Just remember, the later you are in life, the harder it is going to be increase your savings and take full effect of the compound measure that we have when we invest in the overall market. So when we invest into, example, the S&P 500 ETF or a Vanguard Life Fund, that's tracking the overall world markets, we want to be able to compound that as much as we can with our income that we're setting aside every single month. By doing this, we're ultimately going to be compounding the amount of money that we have at retirement and increasing that wealth pot for our future self. And ultimately try to utilize ISAs as well, because you can then use your full tax bracket. Also remember that there is no capital gains tax on the upside gains that you get on those tracker funds. This overall is a good blend of making sure that you're being tax efficient, but also the upside gains is not getting any capital gains tax. Overall, you want to make sure that you're just managing all of these different aspects of your monthly income to ensure that you're working on that goal towards financial freedom. Any of that cash that you've got set aside, if you aren't invested into S&P 500 ETFs or FTSE All Worlds via your ISAs, or you've maximized that ISA, then make sure that you're sitting on that cash in a good savings pot. Now, great places to put your money would be stuff like Moneybox, Monzo, or Plum. For example, on Moneybox, you can look at getting 4.96% on a notice account, meaning that if you lock that money up for 95 days, you're achieving near 5% per annum return on your investment yield of just having that cash savings pot sat there. Overall, I really like Monzo from a savings pot. You can literally put your money in and get it out within 24 hours, and the current earning rate is 4.63% interest. This is a fantastic yield to be able to get within a 24-hour notice account. And also, one of the biggest winners that you could have on a month-to-month savings is 4.97%, and that's with Plum. So have a look at the Plum app, because it's very crucial if you're interested in increasing that savings pot. 4.97%, definitely one to focus on. And with that 4.97%, you can literally get your money out within 1 day, depending on the working hours that you're doing that. So that's 4.97% that you can get quick access to your money. Overall, guys, I hope this video has really helped you on starting that pathway to financial freedom, starting to look after your money from a budgeting perspective. Make sure you follow this channel for more financial tips on how to become financially free and start building that pot for your future self. Don't forget to thumbs up, comment, and subscribe.